Alright, I'm going to try to keep this brief, but this was our last merge of the night. At this point, I've been trying to pull up into a sort of two-circle geometry, keeping high energy, pulling up in altitude, and seeing if I can convert that into an advantage, which I never really did, but you just got to keep trying. So in this particular merge, taking a look here, when we get to the pass, I mean, we're essentially even. Our calibrated airspeed's about the same. I'm pulling just a little bit more G, a little bit more rate. Our lift vectors are pointing in sort of the same angles relative to the surface. So everything's seeming generally even at that point. You pull up a little higher, a little higher, a little higher. And it's at this point where I'm trying to maintain this particular speed, sort of a high speed. This is the wrong speed. And this is something I talked to Venom about after the fact, but something to keep in mind if you see videos, highlights on YouTube, anything like that, any documentation. If you get a speed and a G in mind for some sort of ideal state, what you'll probably end up finding is that it's not ideal all the time. It's only ideal in a certain situation, which is why all the veterans, if you ask them questions, well, what should I do in general, they'll say, well, it depends, because it always does depend. So interestingly, I have this number 460 knots at 9 Gs in my head as some ideal standard for rate speed, and I actually got that from one of Reload's YouTube shorts, and it's stuck in my head, and it's getting me killed in these fights, not because of Reload, but because of my misattribution of that strategy. But anyway, I'm flying way too fast. Venom's flying a good speed. He's higher than me right now, but he's not super advantageous. I mean, I've got a good speed. I'm climbing. He's just a little bit higher, and then he does this, which I see this and I think, well, that's stupid. How could this possibly work? He's wasting all of his speed. I mean, I see it on his plane. He's pulling hard, pulling his nose up. He has to be losing energy. I've got all the energy I want, pulling up, 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 up. Now I'm slightly above him in altitude. I've got good speed. His speed's dying quickly. I've got good energy. My total energy here, this is potential plus kinetic. It's good relative to his. So I mean, at this point, it looks like I have all the advantages in the world. I've got so much more speed. I've got more altitude. I've got more energy. How could I not convert this into an advantage? All I need to do is not get shot if he can pull his nose over, which he doesn't really have the speed. He's just losing speed, and his nose just drops. You can see this dotted line. It's pulling in front of me, but he just can't keep it up. And so what are my options here? Well, back here, if he's at no speed, and I have a lot of speed, there's no reason why I can't just keep this altitude, circle around, and he can't follow me. And at this point, this is another lesson that I've learned recently, or relearned 1,000 times, is that if you think you're fighting neutral BFM, but you're actually defensive, you're probably doing stupid things. So in this case, if this is my 3-9 line, he's technically behind it right now. So I need to neutralize this fight at this point. But I think we're neutral. And so what I do, instead of something smart, I first think, well, I'm going to use my altitude advantage, my energy advantage to pull maximum rate. So I'm going to dip my nose, pull back hard, and then I think, no, I want to try something else. So I turn and I think, well, he can't pull back and follow me into a vertical 2-circle. I'll get a super advantage if I do this. So I change my plan in the middle of things while he's gaining energy. And I think, well, let's do this. 2 things here. My lift vector is pointing towards, God, and not him. and meanwhile he's, pointing straight lead. And so I do that for a bit, and I think let's go into a vertical 2-circle. But this isn't a vertical 2-circle, and this changes immediately. I finally realize that I'm not flying relative to him, and so I turn it. And so now we're basically in like a rolling scissors. And I don't know what I'm doing at this point. I don't know what speed I should be. I'm pretty sure that a rolling scissors is a 2-circle fight, so I should be aiming for rate as opposed to a flat scissors, which is a 1-circle. So I'm like trying to rate. My lift vector is kind of dog shit. I think it's pure-ish. Whereas if we look at his, it's almost always lead. He knows where I'm flying. He's flying to that point. And I'm thinking, at this point, I think we're in a vertical 2-circle, and you'll see, like, here's my lift vector. God knows where it's pointing. But I'm assuming that we're in this vertical 2-circle, and we're simply not. And the other point here is that this is defensive BFM. Like, I think we're in some sort of rate fight, and we're simply not. And the reason we're not, zooming all the way back, is because of this. So I lost probably about here. I mean, I was okay here, but then I did this, and then I did this. And I'm defensive, and it's not looking good. The other thing that I thought was fascinating, if I zoom this forward a little bit, if we zoom out and look at the shapes of the circles, you can see he's flying these little circles inside mine. He flies out, and he flies in, and he flies up. I'm flying these big circles around him, and I think I have all this energy, and I can use this to my advantage in some sort of 2-circle fight. But when he pulls the vertical here and gets offensive, then all of my big circles are just room for him to stay inside. And so you'll see, like, he pulls up, he pulls down, he's inside my circle, he pulls over, he's now looping, he's inside my circle again. I'm trying to vie for some sort of position, but again, it's not neutral despite what I think. And he's still just inside my circle. He doesn't need as much speed, he doesn't need as much energy. And then this happens. So I think to myself, I've got good energy. He probably doesn't. I'm going to try to see if I can pull this into an actual vertical 2-circle and see if I can capitalize on some advantage. And if he had pulled back here and really tried to follow me up, then it would have been an advantage. But instead, he's a good player, and so he sort of gains some energy, lets his circle lag a little bit. And what happens is, no matter how much more rate I might have around my circle than he does, like if you look, I'm sort of pointing more towards this direction than he is. But he doesn't have to point where I'm pointing. All he has to do is point to where I'm going to be, and gets a shot off. And I don't think he hits here, through whatever grace of God he misses. But at this point, I mean, even I can't deny that this is defensive BFM. And so from here on out, I just don't really pull up an advantage. But really, it was, to me, most illuminating that he does this little maneuver where he basically points his nose straight up while we're in like a 2-circle merge, and loses himself energy, and then I allow him to get it back and just don't capitalize on my actual advantage and just let him keep his. In part, I guess, I mean, mostly because I'm inexperienced, but also I thought it was neutral when I was in fact defensive, and I needed to make it neutral again. So those are my thoughts. I'm curious what other people think.